What it do, my Aryan jigaboos? Alright, let's EFAP this shit. No introductions. This guy's name is Tanner. He's a pretty gay gamer. My name is Mike Hawk and the Watch Together. So let's, without further ado, get started.
One of the most overrated games to come out in the last year or so is Elden Ring, and I can't really understand why, because based off of what I played, Elden Ring is pretty much Dark Souls 3.5 or 4 if that's where you want to take it. The only thing that Elden Ring really does that separates itself from Dark Souls 3 is the shield parry mechanic, the spear summonings, the horse, and the open world. Oh yeah, and the stealth mechanic. You take
Okay.
I mean, to begin with, like DS1, depending upon how you play it, can be extremely open world. Same with DS2, from what I've seen.
Well, regardless, another thing is the horse, you just get to move around the world a lot faster, and on top of that, there are combat scenarios in which you have to, it becomes more of a spacing battle as opposed to just dodge rolling into things or shielding everything, where you have to, like, keep away from your enemy as opposed, and move around without the use of iframes at all. Like, sometimes it's advantageous. Like, what's it called? The dragon, it has a massive AoE attack, so you have to run away from it. You can't just, like, roll into the iframes because it lasts for so long. The spirit summonings, that's another thing that I think is kind of important, because, you know the whole entire joke about journalist difficulty, haha, you're playing with other NPCs or other players to summon on. It kind of has the difficulty eased a bit about when it comes to that, but at the same time, most of the spirits don't have a dodge roll, and even the ones that do are horrible at timing with it. So it allows you to distract the focus of the boss to something else so that you can get some damage for a while. But on top of that, they can die. Kind of, but they die really easily, and they also can consume a lot of FP, so you get to choose whether you want to spend that on FP on spells, weapon arts, which are called Ash of War in this game, or anything else. Shield parry, I don't understand why he says shield parry. Because
yeah, it sounds like it's just parry. Like, unless you can parry shields themselves somehow.
I don't think so. I've tried it. I have not been successful. Well, there's the other thing he said is the sneak mechanic, and I think that isn't like as big of a thing, but it is very much more comfortable to the player, because in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and like to a lesser extent Bloodborne, you would have to move the joystick up to the dead zone to get the normal walking animation as opposed to the jogging one. And that just seemed really annoying, so just giving a crouch so that you don't go all the way with that, so that enemies have a harder time hearing you, that's just a lot more convenient than in the rest of the games.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's also the fact that I would assume in this game they didn't make it like DS1, 2, and 3, where there's just a simple aggro range that certain enemies have. Because if you can actually like sneak in this game and it actually affects like, sound and whether or not enemies will find you, then that's like a whole new mechanic added. Because in DS1, at least, pretty much enemies just have like a specific aggro range. That aggro range would be larger in front of them and then shorter behind them, obviously. But they would tend to just have an aggro range, and there was nothing you could really do to stop it except for use. I think there was a specific item or spell in DS1.
It was the slumbering dragon ring that makes you impossible to hear, so you can just walk around as much as you want. Like, you can even go full sprint, I think. But yeah, those are massive changes, because it also, it gets rid of the need of an item, which is way more convenient for players.
Open world. Oh yeah, and the stealth mechanic. You take these things away and the shit is just a Dark Souls 3 DLC, which is not a bad thing, because if you're a huge fan of the Souls series, then you probably don't give a fuck about anything of what I'm saying right now.
Bad faith on top of that.
Well, I mean, what he's saying doesn't matter, because if you take away all the mechanics that make this game unique, it's just the previous games, of course. It's a useless statement.
Dang, you mean to say that if I take away BioShock Infinite and BioShock 2 remastered from the BioShock collection, it's just BioShock 1 remastered?
Is that the truth?
like there's also changes in stamina that just make it a lot better. So, for example, the window in which you have after an action before stamina starts to recover is a lot smaller, which is one of the problems with Dark Souls 3, as opposed to because it had Bloodborne enemies and like Bloodborne dodging times, but the real problem was after the fact you'd be screwed over because you would have to wait a certain amount of time before you can get stamina regen. So you would have to compensate for that with like grass. I mean, grass crest shield is always a good option, but you would have to like have a polarity ring all the time.
You're just happy to have another Souls game. But someone like me who frequents the Souls games here and there, I just don't believe in spending $60+ on a game that's damn near similar to the game I've already played. I'll just
Don't.
wait till the shit goes on sale. But in this case, I went and bought Elden Ring because of the hype that was surrounding it. Also, I'm a fan of the Souls series, so like, why the fuck not, right? Plus, the review.
So his reason for buying it is extremely similar to a lot of other people who were like sad that they bought it. They fell for the hype. Like I don't understand. I don't know when gamers are gonna understand that you should never fall for the hype around a game. Like there have been so many times where hype is just like destroyed. I don't remember what it was, but it was like one game on. It was like the first game that was ever financed on
Shenmue 3?
Kickstarter, I believe it was.
Well, that's not the first one,
Shenmue
but
3 was like a big disappointment to people, but this one was like a Star. I don't know if it was called Star Citizen, but it was basically an outer space game. That one was a massive disappointment to people, and they had to like do tons of work on it. No Man's Sky was a massive disappointment to people on release, I should say, because that one's apparently become good now. The most recent one, Cyberpunk 2077.
Yep.
Yeah, that one was a massive failure to people, and like I don't understand when people will stop getting hyped for these games. Like I freaking loved Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight was like one of my favorite games of all time, but even I'm not hyped for Silksong because I know that very much it could be a disappointment.
I mean, for me personally, unless the directors say that they're gonna try and stray away from what they originally intended or anything, or they just explicitly state that, hey, this is just gonna be a bunch of scrapped ideas we had, like with not Stalker 2, but whatever the second one was called, Clear Sky. It was pretty much a bunch of the scrapped ideas they had in Stalker 1 that they couldn't fully implement. Then I would, if something like that were to come out, then I wouldn't be as disappointed. Or no, I wouldn't be as hyped for it. But like, if there's something I know and I fully trust in, because it's not some one-off thing, like say Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 was just kind of forced. Like even Miyazaki didn't really put effort into it, but with Elden Ring, he actually put effort into it, which is why I wanted to play it. There's also stuff when they take a lot of time just considering concepts for the game and trying to find out what they want for it, like with Red Dead Redemption 2. A lot of people don't like that game. I personally don't feel disappointed by it at all. Like, sure, there are some segments in which it just lags and will put off a lot of people, especially in terms of replay. But I don't know. It's just a thing you should weigh. You shouldn't go and buy a game because other people like it. You should buy a game because you believe in the people who are behind it. And, like, you know what they're doing, as opposed to them just trying to do something entirely different.
Listen, Griffith, the only hype you should fall for is the Morbius hype, okay? Go watch Morbius.
Let's check the IGN score first.
Dude, I'm sure it's awful. I have not seen it, and I do not plan on watching it. It looks just like another dime a dozen, like, vampire movie. I'm sure I just upset all the Morbius fans in the chat.
Jared Leto sucking a vampire bat's dick in order to become an actual vampire. This is one hard drive article where it's like Jared Leto becomes an amputee in the hopes of becoming Revolver Ocelot.
This game were fucking godly like, and after playing 5+ hours of Elden Ring.
Wait, godly like. I guess that godly can be an adverb, but okay.
I cannot for the life of me figure out why this game was so well received. Elden Ring, aka Elden Snooze, aka Elden Z's, aka the Horse Simulator, 95% of the 5+ hours I put into that game was spent running around on my horse farming souls, getting armor and weapons, and just hoping to find some shit to do. I even checked out some Twitch streams to see if anyone was doing anything interesting with this game, and lo and behold, they were doing the exact same shit as me, running around on a horse hitting shit with the hopes of finding something to do. I literally came.
Okay, so there's so many. There's like 8 bosses in the Weeping Peninsula, and that is right below the first area. A lot of them are. I'll agree that a lot of them are just off the beaten path, but at the same time, once you find a map, which is typically clearly highlighted on the map, where it shows the little headstone thing, even if it's in uncharted territory, once, like once you find that, you can just go to all the areas you want to. You'll see like circles and stuff, or you can just find interesting things. Like I remember this one sort of spirit thing, just walking down to a cave where you find the bear to fight. Just basically, you shouldn't be grinding. You should just find whatever you need in the environment. On top of that, well, you're just able.
From what I can tell in literally every single Dark Souls game, grinding is very much a choice. You can always get good enough to obviously solo or no hit bosses, I should say, not solo.
You're supposed to solo bosses, by the way. What are you, a games journalist?
Exactly. It's kind of like it. That's why. That's personally why I preferred Sekiro, because Sekiro took out all farming and it was literally just get fucking good. That's why I liked Sekiro.
So one of the funny things about that is you can literally just dick around in the overworld, and if you find items all over the place, you won't really need to grind, because you can find runes that'll give you like 3 levels if you go to one of the higher level places like Khalid. That's what I did. I ended up killing like a couple bosses there early on, but you still get a bunch of really good stuff. Even if you can't use it, you'll get runes, you'll get other items that you can use, like the dragon grease or whatever, to get the blood rot, scarlet rot. That's what it was. But yeah, you get a lot of stuff. The environments, there's just a lot of things packed. Basically, he chose to grind. He's skill issuing.
Across a Twitch streamer who was literally begging to find a dungeon or a cave to raid while they was running around on their horse. The world feels empty a lot of times with no sense of direction, which will give off the impression that the game is boring, which it is a lot of.
It has no sense of direction. You're supposed to go wherever you want, though. It's an open world.
It's not like a story-driven game where it's got like you have to go here and then here and then here next for progression, right?
Yeah, there's no radar. You have to make your own markers.
You can go fight endgame. You can go fight endgame bosses from like nearly the get-go, right?
I'm pretty sure I haven't come across it myself, but apparently there is a chest that teleports you to one of the near endgame bosses. So technically, yeah.
But that's awesome.
Even though there's only like a few mandatory bosses you have to beat, one of the bosses that a lot of people beat, Radon, he isn't even necessary. You don't even have to go to Khalid, from what I've heard. But it's just a really cool place to go, because you can also do a side quest that leads to a different ending in the game there, I'm pretty sure. Because it has the character who's basically a Guts reference. But yeah. As I said, there's 8 bosses in that one tiny area in the Weeping Peninsula. There's like a lot more spread out through the overworld. He's just not looking for it, or he's just zooming over with his horse that he just can't find it.
Times. I can't tell you how many times I fell asleep on the controller while running around.
Okay.
Also, personally, I just hate. I don't know if there'll be anybody in the chat who agrees with me, but I personally just despise, like literal despise and hate riding horses in video games. Like, I didn't enjoy it in Minecraft. I've never enjoyed it in any game that had horses, except for Barbie's Horse Simulator or whatever it was called for the DS. That game was fun.
How could you not like Star Stable Online, you fucking bitch?
I never played that one. Dude, I hated riding horses
Okay.
in Harvest Moon and in Harvest Moon Plus, which is Stardew Valley. That's what it's called. Stardew Valley. My bad.
Well, either way, he's just said he fell asleep on the controller, so that's the reason why you're possibly missing a lot of architecture and environments. Another thing you said, Tanner, is I hope chat doesn't hear this. This is pre-recording, so you can say the N word all you want, and I can bleep it out, or I can just make it ear rape even more if you want.
I don't care. That was a joke.
Oh, okay. So you
Chat can hear everything I say.
Around on my horse to only wake up and get game banged by a bunch of random ass enemies. A lot of the areas in this game look
I literally fell asleep and then I got
gangbanged
gangbanged by enemies.
They have this dullish tone to them that literally.
Yeah, they have a dull tone. Doesn't
I
this
mean, the Dark Souls series has always had that sort of art direction. Also, this area looks super unique. So I mean, like, dull tones be damned.
Yeah, dull tone, definitely, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, red's my favorite dull tone.
So this is some pseudoscience bullshit going on, but when you get a light shined in your eye, you see red. So that's an indicator that there's light around and that you should be alert and awake because you are a diurnal animal instead of a nocturnal animal. That's just pseudoscience on the fact that it's not dull, but like regardless, Dark Souls is very dark, and if he is a Souls fan, as he says, this is not as dark, so I would be critiquing it for other reasons if I want to go way too far in the other direction.
Really begs the player to fucking yawn. Like, this shit is like NyQuil on joysticks. A lot of people,
There's like,
and the ones that do look different, they have.
there's like so much going on here, though.
Oh,
Like,
he said this is the one that does look different. My bad. So he was talking about other stuff.
no, he's saying even then it looks dull.
This dullish tone to them that literally begs the player to fucking yawn.
Yeah. So there's blights
Okay,
growing.
You were right. I was wrong.
There's blights going on the ground. There's this like reddish, almost blood material that's you walk on. That also inflicts something called scarlet rot on you, which like this is going a bit too into the game, but in lore, scarlet rot is something that this one girl just stabbed a guy with, and then because the rot was inside of him and he's immortal, it just ate him out from the inside out, and then he just went insane and ate everyone he saw. It's like
That's kind of based.
It's some metal shit.
Like, this shit is like NyQuil on joysticks. A lot of people like to say that Elden Ring is a perfect mixture of Dark Souls and Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I find to be a huge issue because I think Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of the most boring and tedious games ever.
Based as hell opinion, I actually despise Breath of the Wild. Its combat is... Now, let's be honest. Legend of Zelda's combat has never been good. I think the best it probably was in Twilight Princess, but I never played Twilight Princess, so I didn't like very much. I've played through.
I think the best it is in Twilight Princess. I haven't played Twilight Princess.
No, that's why I'm saying I think. This isn't like my think is in my opinion. It's like I believe that's the general consensus.
Well, okay. Either way, you're wrong. The best is Four Swords Anniversary Edition.
Oh, Four Swords would be super fun though.
Yeah,
that's true. But so like for 3D ones, that one or Skyward Sword probably have the best combat. Wait, in Twilight Princess, you can also do the Wii Remote Swing thing, right?
I think
maybe that was in like the Plus version. I think you can, but I don't think it actually like tracks the sword. I think you just swing the Wii Remote and then it does a random slash of links.
I don't know.
But I think those are probably the ones that have like the 3D ones that have the best combat. And like Twilight, what's its nuts? Breath of the Wild's combat is so like inconsistent and awful. Specifically, the flurry rush thing is like one of the most inconsistent mechanics I have ever seen in my life. they specifically make it to where like it can only happen during a certain windows. It's not the game actually trying to detect whether or not you were like close to a weapon whenever you dodged. The game specifically detects if you do the dodge that the developers thought was the correct dodge to do at the time. And then if you did it during a very specific time where the enemy's weapon, specifically this happens a lot with Lionels if you pay a lot of attention, will literally just phase through like half your body. So like you didn't actually dodge it, but the game just recognizes that you dodged it and slows down time. And then you see the enemy's weapon in slow-mo go through like half of your body.
Yeah, it just
Like
clips
it's
you.
so inconsistent and awful. Yeah. That's on top of the fact that like only one item that I was able to find in the game had a, in air quotes, unique moveset compared to every other item of its class. And that was this one katana, and its charge attack, if I remember correctly, was just a basic swing. Even the Master Sword doesn't have any unique moveset. The Master Sword just shoots a beam if you're at full health. That is all. It's also not strong at all.
So,
like, the weapon design in that game is so freaking bad, and all of the dungeons are so easy. Like, literal, like, move this one block, move these, like, 3 blocks on top of each other, bam, you beat the dungeon.
yeah, I will agree with the tedious part. The boring, I mean, like, so the environmental stuff.
Boring is subjective.
Like, the environmental stuff was really cool to look at. One of the things I did have a problem with is that taming the beasts in order to enter them was a lot more fun than the getting inside of the beast.
Yeah.
It was like, there are interesting aspects to it, but part of it is just make your own fun. You just like see something, you go to it. Like, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that it's see and go to is just shrines, and just getting access to another shrine is the most dull thing ever. Because of how many there are, the environment of the shrine is just really uninteresting after the first few times you see it. Especially, and that's
I thought it was
like
uninteresting the first time I saw it.
like it also exacerbates the problem of the beast itself. Because sometimes you get some interesting stuff with the beast where you're just on the outside of it and you're looking at the thing as a whole. But for the most part, it is kind of boring. I don't know. Side quests were but that's just with every Zelda game. Except for Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is the best one.
Like, that shit is night cool
awesome.
on joysticks as well, but to an even greater degree because you can't even walk around with your sword in the rain because you'll get hit by lightning.
That's awesome. Like, if you walk with your weapon out, it's like a lightning rod, Griffith. Is that true? That's kind of fucking awesome if that's true.
In Breath of the Wild.
Oh, okay.
So
I was thinking, does that happen in Elden Ring? I was gonna be like, that's amazing.
no, that would be really annoying because you have to take off your entire armor set.
That's why it'd be cool. You would go fist fight the enemies, or you could get your enemies to be like hit with the lightning.
You know what you got instead? You got 8 new poison swamps.
Let's go. I love poison swamps.
Some of them aren't even poisonous, but there's just like 8 swamps in the game. Only one of them is poison, and the other one is just like filled with at least 2 of them are filled with blood. And you die of AIDS from it. But he's saying that you can't hold your sword out in the rain. There are multiple ways to circumvent that in Breath of the Wild, though. You can just get non-metal items. You can just switch to nothing in your hands. You can get the rubber suit that you get.
The game also at least lets you know when it's about to happen because you, like, your weapons and stuff get like a huge static electric charge.
Yeah, and you also get the audio cue. You can teleport out of the rainy area and just go and sleep. Or, like, worst case scenario... no, because it's only Elden Ring that you can't teleport out of anywhere during enemy encounters. In Breath of the Wild, you can just teleport at any time.
In Breath of the Wild, you can also just open your inventory and chug potions like in Skyrim.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's... he's making a critique of Breath of the Wild, but he's saying the worst point he possibly can.
Yeah.
On top of that, your weapon breaks in 5 fucking swings. Look, Zelda Breath of the Wild
That one's kind of true.
is easily one of the most overrated games of all time, and I have a separate video on that coming soon. But the point I was trying to make is that it makes sense that people compare Zelda Breath of the Wild to Elden Ring because they both are fucking boring and they suffer from almost the same things.
He just said weapons break in Breath of the Wild, and you get electrocuted by lightning in Breath of the Wild, but apparently neither of those things happen in
The only other
Elden
thing
Ring.
he said is the environments look boring, but there's no like real explanation on that, especially because you know the whole entire homogeneity in the environments in Breath of the Wild is a more like ancient technology sort of vibe as opposed to the dull vibe as he likes to call it. So like those are
like I'd make the argument that in Breath of the Wild there's only like a very few standout areas like that like you can actually that at least personally I should say where I like remember the visuals from them because they actually stood out. But in like almost every single Dark Souls game, except I would say that in Elden Ring, there are probably a lot of visually stunning areas that just aren't the overworld necessarily, because the overworld is going to be like a pretty plain place because it has to connect and be like an actual land mass, like in real life, where you can actually like traverse across it and get to different places.
so
Once they bring in the branching places like the dungeons and stuff like that, that's when they're able to get crazy, which is part of the reason why I think open world games tend to suffer from world design wise, like at least with like having like a lot of interesting areas.
So
because they kind of have to have a normal area to connect areas.
yeah, the thing with that is that it isn't really a normal area. There's like the grass plains in Windgrave, but there's also the Weeping Peninsula, which is just Seattle.
Seattle.
That's the only place I like to. That's the only adverb I use to add words. That's the only thing I use to describe like overcast or rainy places anymore. There's Larunia, which is just an entire swamp, which is like very different from the rest of the environment. The sky is also.
I think Larunia should have been a library because of the game called Library of Runia.
It might have been called like Larunia or whatever. I don't listen to NTC dialogue. I just read it. I don't know how to pronounce things. Khalid is just the eclipse because it's just red all the time. And the central area is kind of mid. It's just like it has this autumn look in it, but also the sky is pissy yellow. It's literally JoJo Part 4. Now that I think about it. There's also the underground area where it's like a night sky, but it's underground and it like blends in with the cave. It was like I'm assuming the implication is that like all the minerals and stuff in the ceiling of the cave are sparkling, and I think that's kind of cool because like the texture of the sky just blends in, and you can see these little lines that look like stalactites and stuff. So I would say they have pretty varied environments.
An empty, uninteresting open world. Now, personally, I prefer Elden Ring's world over Breath of the Wild's world because at least in Elden Ring, they have some cool shit to look at and fight every now and then. Plus,
so he says there's some cool stuff, but at the same time, he just like skips over a lot of the bosses, and he's saying, "Oh, there's nothing to fight." But he's actively skipping over stuff.
When I watched my younger brother play, there was only like whenever he was going from like one boss to the next, there was generally only like a few minutes if he got on his horse and made a beeline. And even then, you could fight enemies in between while they're on the horse or hopping off of it. Like I saw this one like caravan of like 3 or 4 giants that were like pulling this huge wooden like almost Trojan horse thing along with like a long caravan of knights and like grunt enemies. And that was pretty cool to see.
Their world is not as tedious as Breath of the Wild's world, so yeah, that's also a plus as well. Now, I want to get into these goofy ass reviews because I'm of the mindset that nothing is perfect out there or even damn near perfect. Anything with a 97, 98 or up, or even just a 10 out of 10, look, I'm automatically disqualifying that shit and I'm going to test it out for myself because video game reviewers are the last motherfuckers you want to trust when it comes to video game reviews. Shit, not even just them. Motherfuckers on Twitter, YouTube.
Don't trust people on YouTube. You can't trust this guy Tanner. He's on YouTube. He's a motherfucker on YouTube.
I can't trust you because you're on YouTube.
This is true. I am on YouTube, but now because of me, you're also on YouTube. So can you really trust your own instincts?
Uh-oh.
Who's the real bad guy here? Midlife crisis, you can die at 42. Nice.
I'm gonna die so soon. Oh my goodness.
You can't trust their opinions either because most of them motherfuckers are hype beasts and they just want to fit into a popular trend or some shit. A lot of video game reviewers are
I haven't heard the term hype beast in forever. The last time I heard it was when people were still like talking about rice gum with the items content top on them.
The hype beast house. Are you saying that my man, what's his name, Morgs is not a hype beast?
I mean, Morgs probably does count as one, I guess, but I haven't been paying attention to like a lot of YouTube. I have just not been paying attention to. I've pretty much just been watching PSA Stitch and Adam, and then lately I've been watching a Metroid Fusion randomizer race tournament that went on in 2021.
You should watch this one cute and funny YouTube channel. It's called Challenger Andy.
Iron-Blooded Onion.
No, fuck that channel. That's a fucking gay-ass channel.
I agree. I concur.
Yeah, you should watch Challenger Andy. He makes some good content. He likes torturing himself, which is kind of funny. He does these challenge runs where he replaces every enemy in a game with just one specific boss.
Oh, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, he took 2 days. No, not 2 days. More like 2 weeks just to get out of the Undead Asylum in Dark Souls 1 after he replaced every enemy with Gwyn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Biased as hell and will give a bad game a high score just so that they can keep their industry relationships intact. Especially if the game is from a big developer. The video game
Okay, so they say that they do it because it's hype as hell, as opposed. I guess that that isn't necessarily not synonymous with saying that you're a fan, but I just find it kind of weird because a lot of the hype for Elden Ring was not entirely coming from Dark Souls fans. It was coming from a lot of Breath of the Wild fans who are just desperate to cling on to anything that's an open world environment where you can ride a horse. Except for Red Dead 2. Actually, yeah. Except for Red Dead 2. They clung on to Genshin Impact. They're clinging on to Wavefarer or whatever. The new indie game that's on the PS4. Or going to be on the PS4 with a glider in it. So.
Viewing industry is borderline dead as hell, and they have to rely on big developers to keep them relevant because they're already a dying breed. Without their relationships with these big studios, they're pretty much fucked. Look at The Last of Us Part 2.
No. Games journalism dying happens. I wouldn't say that it's because they're dependent, that they're doing more positive reviews. They've always been a lot more positive towards new stuff coming out. This is kind of prevalent. Actually, let's just for a sort of sake of argument thing, let's see. DMC Devil May Cry IGN, because everybody hated that. It was given an 8.9. This is back in 2012.
That was DMC 2, right?
No. This is DMC Devil May Cry. It's the reboot that everybody hates. It's given an 8.9, despite the fact that everybody who was a DMC fan hated it. Now, for another reason, actually, I want to see I don't even know if IGN was made that time. But, they do very much overrate games before they come out, regardless of quality, and, regardless of whether there's hype behind it. Because, DMC Devil May Cry, everybody hates reboots. And this was one of the more prevalent ones because it's just a bunch of edgelord garbage shit.
I don't know what it is with reboots and remakes, but a lot of remakes tend to be worse than the original, which is just kind of baffles the mind.
Yeah, another thing, if you want to say the whole entire dick riding train, well, he shows it on screen right now, Last of Us Part 2. You don't think that the gaming companies and the games journalists could have easily just, like, dick rode that? You don't think that one, like, outstanding... You don't think that, like, not outstanding... That one, like, sort of outlet in the games industry would just go out and say, hey, this game's actually bad. I disagree with everybody else who says this is good. Fuck this game. Like, I mean, we saw that technically happen with Cyberpunk, but to a lesser extent when this one, what's her name? The one girl just gave Cyberpunk a 7 out of 10, and everybody was railing her over it, even though, like, people most likely would have given the game that score. To an extent, I will say that, like, her review is kind of garble, because she doesn't go over much of the content, and she actually, like, actively avoids mechanics, but that's a whole different story.
Two, can you really tell me with a straight face that game was well executed? They gave that shit a 90 plus score and it won the
executed
game of the fucking year. Like, it can't get more fucking obvious than that. And now you're telling me
Yeah, that has a bit more to do with pushing the message as opposed to, like, hype.
I mean, another part of the problem with, like, game reviewers and stuff is that, like, if you want a good game review, you're gonna have to put in, like, a lot of time into, one, learning about the mechanics and the gameplay, and two, like, spending all the time just, like, typing it out and researching it and making everything mesh together well in your written review.
Yeah, but here's
which is probably why a lot of reviewers are so shitty at games, because they probably don't have a ton of time to play games, unfortunately. It's probably more of just a hobby that they wanted to make into a job.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing. Reviewers get their copies early on, and the only instance in which that did not happen was Doom 2016, because they wanted the multiplayer to be played on its own, and, like, to be experienced by the entire player base, so they didn't really do anything. I meant to say this earlier, but I just kind of got off track, but he's saying that they want to cultivate hype-based culture, but they also want to suck off large game journalists. Large game companies, I mean to say. But in terms of, at least when it comes to Last of Us 2, those two things were antithetical to each other. All the fans were just review bombing it before it even came out, because they thought that all the leaks were 100% true and they were garbage. Granted, some of the leaks were actually very true, and in some instances, the dialogue in the game was a lot worse. We gotta remember the bigot sandwiches. That's probably my favorite part of the game, because it just gave me something new to cook. And bigot sandwiches taste amazing.
Bigot sandwiches was such a bad line.
But it tastes so good. I forget who it was, but somebody made, like, an instruction video on how to make bigot sandwiches, and they're amazing. But, yeah, he can't have his cake and eat it too. He brings up the worst example to support his claim, which is Last of Us 2, because he just says, oh, hey, these guys, all they want to do is be hype beasts and feed into the hype beast culture. But also they want to suck off big game companies. And, like, if you look at the culture, they were just entirely competing with each other. So he could have made the point, but he just, like, dropped the ball really hard.
I'm supposed to take these 97s, 98s, and fucking 10 out of 10 seriously? Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Elden Ring launched with mad bugs and glitches, and they're out here giving it 10 out of 10s. Like, how does that shit make any sense? A 95 to 100 score is a close to perfect to a perfect game. If your game has a shit ton of bugs and glitches to the point where it ruins the experience of the game, then the game is not a 95 to 100 or even a 10 out of 10. Now,
so
that's why I don't like the way that people, like, conceptualize reviews. I would conceptualize something 100 or approaching 100 to be like a masterpiece, not necessarily perfect, but something that's, like, absolutely astounding, amazing. Everything should strive to reach this thing in some aspect.
So, I mean, this is obviously a bit of cherry picking, but Ocarina of Time has the poacher's knife, which just breaks the game. So I guess it's not a masterpiece.
The poacher's knife?
Yeah, the poacher's knife. It just breaks the game. There's, like, a game-breaking glitch because it takes more inventory slots than it should.
I've never heard of the poacher's knife.
Er,
In Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. This better not be a Mandela thing.
I don't remember that. There's the giant's knife, which
Poacher's
like
saw, that's
kills
what it
everything in
is.
one
Okay.
hit. Oh, okay. I now I know what you mean. I was like, poacher's knife. The only knife I remember was the giant's knife.
Okay. Well, either way, another thing he said is that game breaking
95 to
glitches. Can't full screen this. Fuck.
100.
Watch together's watch. Acting pretty gay. Oh, so's my Wi-Fi.
That literally every single, let's say hypothetically, that literally every single game ever will be broken at some point because there are just going to be problems in coding. Let's just say that that is true because that is proven true for literally every single video game ever created so far. Let's just say that's the case.
Not
What
for
matters
footsies.
more than the fact that there are these
Not for footsies.
what matters more than the fact that there are these like glitches and problems is necessarily how prevalent they are and how game breaking they are. There can be an absolutely game busting, completely breaking glitch that can be literally so rare that nobody ever finds it in a game, like theoretically speaking, at least. And at that point, that thing would never come into your review, right? Because it's literally never come up in gameplay once. There can be game busting glitches like there are in Ocarina of Time, but like those things are so uncommon to find in. I'm just speaking hypothetically here, I should say, but just the fact that there are glitches doesn't necessarily make something bad. What matters is how prevalent they are and how much they affect the gameplay. That's just my overall point. And I don't necessarily know how bad the glitches were at launch for Elden Ring because I still haven't played it.
So yeah, the thing is, he doesn't like bring up any specific glitches. I personally, the funny thing is, I actively didn't patch the game until yesterday because my brother ejected the disc, and there's only one glitch I came across in which the grace that spawns at the mimic tier, where you pretty much fight yourself. It was the interaction box and the sprite for it were just slightly off, and that was the only thing I came across. It's not really game breaking. I can just teleport or like resting wouldn't fix it. But if I just teleport outside of the underground area and then teleport back into it, it would pretty much fix it, guaranteed. But yeah, that's what I was about to bring up, the severity of it, because he doesn't really say that like.
Small fixes go a long way in alleviate the problems that glitches have. Because like whenever I play Enter the Gungeon on the Switch, it has a memory issue to where if I keep the application open for too long and running for too long, you just do too many runs without like fully powering off my Switch and basically closing the game. It will get to the point where like the visuals on the final boss start to completely like bug out and just be replaced with like random sprites in the game, as well as eventually it'll cause the game to completely crash.
That's funny.
But that's simply alleviatable by, after I finish a run, just close application, reopen application. And it's at least something that is consistent, so I know what the problem is and I can know how to fix it.
Yeah, and
what's worse than necessarily a glitch that's bad, but is predictable, is a glitch that is annoying and unpredictable. I personally hate glitches that are just unpredictable and happen when you can't, without any warning, because that means you can't stop them or mitigate them.
I mean, severity is definitely like my main concern, because with Hotline Miami, there are some glitches where, like, I mean, this may be due to overuse. I haven't really looked into it, but the characters or the NPCs that you fight against, they just spawn above the player for some reason, or they just spawn outside of the house, and there's no way of getting outside of the house, and there's no way for them to get in. So you just have to reset the floor. Or, like, worst case scenario, you reset the level. That is annoying because of progress, but at the same time, Hotline Miami, if you beat it once, you pretty much, every other subsequent run is way easier.
It's kind of like Dark Souls in that once you beat the boss a single time, you won't have much trouble with it after that.
Yeah, unless it's like a health sponge, but Hotline Miami doesn't really have that.
100 score is a close to perfect to a perfect game. If your game has a shit ton of bugs and glitches to the point where it ruins the experience of the game, then the game is not a 95 to 100 or even a 10 out of 10. Now, the combat in the game, whenever you do run into an enemy or a boss, is pretty fun, except it can get real repetitive at times whenever you fight against a boss. Like, you'll spend the majority of the fight dodging and rolling from their attacks than actually fighting them, which I guess
Dodging is fighting somebody though. Like in boxing, I wouldn't consider the time that Floyd Mayweather is dodging his opponent a time when he is not fighting his opponent.
It's like, does also getting hit not count as fighting?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If some rando comes up and pops me in the mouth, I think I'm fighting this guy. I think as soon as he pops me in the mouth, that's when the fight starts.
Now, whether or not you're winning is a different story.
Yeah, exactly. Whether or not I'm getting my ass handed to me is completely on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Another thing, I'm something of a Dark Souls fan myself. There's way more rolling than there is fighting.
Yeah, and that's where the challenge comes in. You have to not make the mistake first so that you can then use the time that you gained by not making the mistake to capitalize and attack. Because if you get hit, which is your mistake, you then have to retreat and heal, which is part of the beauty of the game.
Yeah.
Or you can take the option of, oh, I think I'll get it next time. I'm not going to heal, and I'm going to just go back in.
Yeah, another thing that just strikes me is he says that one thing that he says is that shield parrying is new, but also you don't get enough time to fight. Which, I mean, just parry.
Which, like, obviously, when he says really fighting, he means like dealing damage and attacking. If he wants to play that way, then what he needs to do is, like as you're saying, learn the parry timing so you can always be on the offensive.
Or worst case scenario, since
offense and your own.
If you suck at the game, Elden Ring has poise again, so you can just tank everything once you get like 80 strength.
I guess is an issue with all Souls games that I pretty much have. I guess you can call them shits the duck and roll simulator.
I'm gonna nitpick right here, just because why not? But you can't duck in any Dark Souls game except for Elden Ring and Sekiro, where the crouch button exists.
And I know there's going to be people in the
I just want to be a real
saying,
nitpick.
oh, maybe open world games just aren't for you, which isn't true at all because I like open world games. I just don't like open world games like Elden Ring and Zelda Breath of the Wild because they're...
Well, I mean, if this is... I mean, let's analyze a little bit. I'd assume that this game that he's playing seems like very much like an open world game.
This is COD Zombies.
Is COD Zombies in like the newest one? Is it kind of like an open?
I don't know. I don't play the new Zombies. I haven't played since 3, and 3's... Okay, 3's Zombies is actually alright, but yeah. No.
It looks like this Zombies is like open world basically because he's got his map. It shows like different drops and things like that, and he's got like a huge area that he can go across. It seems like he likes this more like run and gun style open world game instead of the more slow and methodical Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
Their open worlds require the player to have some type of imagination or creativity to have fun with it. But
first off, that's untrue. Second off, that's a self-diss. Listen, I don't like my games to require me to have some sort of like imagination or things like that to have fun with.
Listen, I hated the ending to...
He probably hates Minecraft.
Listen, I absolutely hate Inception so much. Like, you have to have creativity to say what the ending is. Like, I don't like that. Like, the rest of the movie was absolutely fine. It was really cool visually, but I don't like having to be creative.
Elden Ring is an alright game. It's one of those games where if I knew what I was getting myself into ahead of time, then I just would have waited for the shit to be on sale. But
he knew about the mechanics of it. He knew it was going to be an open world. He knows that... Okay, so because he says he's a Souls fan, he should know that there is no like linear narrative. There is technically a narrative, but it isn't linear and forces you to go from place to place. You just kind of explore and dick around. Like, one of the biggest troubles a lot of people have with getting into Dark Souls 1 is the fact that the graveyard is a lot more prevalent than the aqueduct, so you can easily get into the pinwheel boss fight as opposed to the Undead Berg very easily. So you're going to think the game is a lot harder than it is.
I wouldn't even say the pinwheel boss fight. I'd just say the catacombs, because the catacombs are like super difficult. It's at least compared to the water.
Unless you know what you're doing.
Giants after that. Yeah, if you know what you're doing, it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like with everything in Dark Souls. You just got to learn the timings and learn.
Yeah, I was a retard, so I went to the Valley of Drakes first.
Oh yeah, you said your first time you got the master key, didn't you?
Yeah, I had the master key in my inventory, and I didn't know to get it from Thief, so I just went immediately to the Valley of Drakes, and then to the Bell Gargoyles as my first fight.
Because I remember that I took the in DS1, couldn't you choose your special item apart from your class, or did
it doesn't matter with the class? However, if you choose the Thief, you get the Master Key regardless of whatever gift you pick. Which is why all the speedrunners do that, because then they can just reallocate their stats later on, because you can do an infinite Souls glitch and remaster it at least.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that for my first one, I chose the equivalent of the Tarnished, the one, what's it
Deprived.
called in DS1? Deprived, yeah. I chose the Deprived, and then I'm pretty sure that I chose the Master Key, because it was the one that I was like, well, I think everything else in the game I can get anyways.
Yeah.
And the Master Key just seemed useful, so I'm pretty sure I got that. And I didn't go to Valley of Drakes first, but I went to Valley of Drakes pretty early on and got absolutely destroyed. My cheeks were clapped, and I left.
Yeah, I just went to Valley of Drakes. I dodged past all the lightning thingies, the lightning drakes, and then I just go up the lift into the Darkroot Garden, and then up to the blacksmith. But because the graveyard and catacombs seem like the area you should go to, if you know what you're getting yourself into, either that or you were handheld by a review. Not a review, but a walkthrough, and you didn't have a walkthrough for Elden Ring yet. And because of that handicap, you don't know where to go, and you don't have any direction. Don't spoil games for yourself. And if you want to, that's completely fine, but then just don't complain that a game doesn't have any direction if you intentionally look through walkthroughs every time.
Due to the hype and due to me being somewhat of a Souls fan, I gave in to it and I spent the $65.
Somewhat of a Souls fan.
Plus, I mean, $65.
65, it was 60. If you want to say tax, then just say 66, because 10%, but I don't know why.
Well, over here in like the Midwest, sales tax is around like 7%.
Oh, okay, well that makes a bit more sense. Alright.
Yeah.
Shit to me.
I'm sorry I live in California.
But in hindsight, it would have been smarter for me to just wait for the shit to be on sale for like $35 to $40, because I mean, I don't really think it's worth $65, especially coming from a person who played damn near all the Souls games, especially Dark Souls 3, because I'm pretty much looking at this shit like it's a DLC expansion pass.
Elden Ring.
Well, I mean, is it a DLC expansion pass that's worth $65? Because I mean, just because something's DLC doesn't mean it has to be like $30 or $20. Theoretically, there could be a DLC that literally like triples the size of a game and you would purchase for like $80.
The best example of that I would give is Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare, where they just revamp the entire map. They bring you four different horses that have like very unique aspects to them. They're all the four horses. So it's like War Pestilence, Famine.
The apocalypse.
Well, not horsemen, but it's just the horses themselves, and they have like really cool aspects to them. Yeah. They have a bunch more quests, and they also have outposts that you need to defend. They pretty much reworked the entire game. I'm pretty sure it was like $40 on launch. I didn't buy it myself because I just got it from my uncle. How much was Undead Nightmare? Oh, it was only $10. Fuck.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, Undead Nightmare was only $10. Well, like either way, it brings in just so many mechanics. It brings in the horses. there's a lot of the game there. Another thing he said in the review, he only played 5 hours in 5+ hours. So I would assume that he plays either less than 10. If I'm gonna be charitable, I said less than 15. So that is one of the things where I just am confused as to why he doesn't. He says, "Oh hey, no, I'm not confused. I understand why he says there's no variety in the environments, but at the same time, it's kind of your fault for playing only like less than 15 hours into the game. If I'm being the most charitable as I possibly can, and if you're doing a lot of grinding as opposed to just exploring, well, you just made the worst experience for yourself."
Yeah, I don't know. From what my younger brother told me about the game, is that like grinding is like really not recommended in Elden Ring.
Because you can just,
At least like grind for souls.
yeah, you can just go all over the place. You'll just find runes on the ground, and you can just pick it up and eat them. And you can just level up via that. A lot of the enemies, unless you're fighting enemies that are later on, they don't drop nearly enough souls to warrant grinding.
But hey, it is what it is. If you never played a Souls game, especially Dark Souls 3, then I recommend that you play this game, because I'm pretty sure you'll be one of those people that say, "Oh my god, this is the second coming of Breath of the Wild," because that seems to be the sentiment for this game around fucking social media and pretty much
I
everyone.
haven't heard anybody say it's like Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild is like so pitifully easy.
Bro, but there's a parry and a dodge roll. It has to be just like Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild's parry is like so garbage.
Okay, I will say that the one fun parrying thing is when you get like the perfect parry on the projectile lasers, because that one's a bit harder to get when you're trying to deflect it perfectly.
It's harder from you gotta learn the timing, but the timing, if you're somewhat close, is just wait for the blue ring to reach in and then just hit.
Yeah, the Guardians were actually
your fire's too fast to actually react to.
Yeah, the Guardians were really. It's probably my favorite fight in all of Breath of the Wild. I can't really think of any encounters that were good. Another thing is that people weren't complaining about Breath of the Wild. People are complaining about Tree Sentinel existing in Elden Ring.
Breath of the Wild was so easy that I went and did all 6 final bosses in a row with only 3 hearts. My first time playing the game. Not healing as well, by the way.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Or no, I only healed once, and that was on the lightning guy, because the lightning guy had this one move that I couldn't figure out how to do anything with, because that was the only move out of any of those bosses where you actually had to use the Sheikah Slate on anything. And whenever he uses that move, you literally have to use the Sheikah Slate. You cannot shoot him with anything. He's just straight up invincible.
Yeah. I'm fucking invincible! I beat Ganon like 2 bosses in because I just wanted to try it. The main issue is definitely just equipment and being able to do a lot of damage to them. You can easily whittle away at their health, but I just don't like doing that. Ugh.
I just farmed up like a few triple bows from a few Lionel fights, and then I just went in and just bow spam them to death, because bows are so OP in that game.
Yeah, especially the ones. What's it called? When you like use the bullet time from the bows, you can bounce to the moon pretty much.
Yeah, because like whenever you headshot one of those bosses, they also just fall down limp for a long time. And the headshots also deal double damage, which if you have one of the triple arrow things and line the boss up close, and even if you're just using normal arrows, let alone their weakness arrows, you can just shred their health bar.
Yeah.
Else. All I know is that Bloodborne is the best Souls game to ever be created, and they need to come out with a PC version, or at least announce Bloodborne Part 2 for the PS5 or some shit, because the minute they announce
Oh my gosh, Bloodborne, it's the best Souls game. It needs a PC port. What? He complained about there being too much roll. Like, there's not as much rolling in. No, there is as much rolling in Bloodborne, but it's like overshadowed by the fact that you can like stagger enemies without having a strength build, having strictly a strength build. That's the only difference I really see. Because a lot of the enemies in Bloodborne are just meant to be staggered, and if not, they're boss enemies which you need to parry. But regardless, I don't understand the whole entire thing about, oh hey, it's just a duck and roll simulator. Considering you can't even shield in Bloodborne. So your only defensive option is to parry if you know the timings, and roll if you don't.
Bloodborne Part 2, trust me, they'll put all this Elden Ring shit to rest. Best believe it. But that's pretty much all I have.
Is he being a hype beast
I
for
don't know what he
Bloodborne
means by
2?
this, because like nothing will put the Elden Ring stuff to rest, because nothing's put any of the Souls games to rest. A lot of people still believe that Dark Souls 2 is the best Dark Souls, even though Dark Souls 3 happened, and Elden Ring happened, and Bloodborne happened, and Sekiro happened, and DS1 happened even before then, and Demon Souls happened even before then.
And Demon Souls happened even
Like,
after
people are
then.
always- And Demon Souls happened after then too. People are always going to think that certain ones are the best and talk about them the most because they're their favorite. Just because Bloodborne 2 comes out doesn't mean that people are going to automatically like it more than Elden Ring.
Another thing, he's being a hype beast for Bloodborne 2. You should save your money. Don't listen to this trash ass reviewer who's gonna give it a 10 out of 10 on launch. Like, I don't know why he's gonna set such high of a standard when he's criticizing hype beasts.
Have to say, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I very much appreciate it. It's your boy Triggered Senpai, and I'm out, man. Peace.
Anime
sucks.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to watch this one right now.